Have you ever had a creepy encounter with someone and hope to never see them ever again, or never have to meet them? Stay tuned and watch this video.
This happened almost exactly 3 years ago. It showed up on my Facebook memories yesterday, and I thought you guys might appreciate it. I was taking the bus home from the store one night around 7 to 8 p.m. It's a route that I took on a regular basis and still take all the time. So usually I recognize some of the people on it. Anyway, this guy that I've never seen before and have never seen since gets on a few stops after me. He's probably in his mid to late 40s and wears construction attire. He keeps looking back at me as if he recognizes me or something. So I kinda big smile at him and in the hopes that he'd stop. Instead, he takes it as an invitation to start a conversation. He starts asking me all these invasive questions, to which I give the most generic non-answers, hoping that maybe he'll notice that he's making me uncomfortable and leave me alone. Instead, he asked me for drinks. I said, "Oh, no, thank you, I'm a minor." I was 17 at the time. To which his reply goes on something along the lines of, "That's okay, I don't mind, and then maybe I can join you at home." I think he went on to explain we could watch a movie and he'd make me the best drink I've ever tasted. But I interrupted him and told him that I was uncomfortable and didn't want to talk to him anymore. Maybe it's not my smartest move, but at least I was honest. And he did stop talking to me. I put in my earbuds and watched him out of the corner of my eye for the rest of the ride. Every time somebody pulled the cord or the bus stopped, he looked back to see if I was getting off. When it finally came to my stop, I was feeling pretty uncomfortable, but pulled the cord anyway. As soon as I started gathering my stuff, he started shifting like he was getting off too. When I stood up, so did he. I waited until he was off the bus before sitting back down in my seat. As the bus driver drove away, I saw that he was still standing at the stop, waiting for me. I decided to ride the bus all the way back around 11 to 22 hours to eliminate the possibility that he was still waiting and then rushed home. I suppose he could have just been a harmless stranger who just happened to be getting off at that stop, but it seems unlikely to me, honestly. I find it extra shady that I've never seen him before and I've never seen him again on the same bus at the same time. In retrospect, I probably should have at least reported it to the police just in case, but I was just blown away by the whole situation. It didn't even think of it. Funnily enough, just months later at the intersection near my bus stop, I had an encounter with a different stranger who turns out to be wanted for assault, and a few months after that, yet another guy told me he'd buy me a drink, buy me anything I wanted, as long as it was under $7,000 at the cost, at the same damn intersection. The weird thing is that before these incidents, nothing like that had happened to me, and nothing like that has happened since. And it was just a weird few months, I guess. After working as a bartender for quite a while, I finally got a morning job, so I tried to go to bed at normal hours after going to bed at 5 to 6 a.m. for years. Shortly after I quit that job, I started getting a few calls on my landline at what people consider late times. Usually people knew to call me on my cell so they didn't disturb the rest of my family, but sometimes my friends effed up and called me on the wrong number. However, it came up as a private number, but I picked them up as quickly since it was so late, but there was no talking, just breathing. The calls started coming every day in intervals of an hour or two. This lasted for 2 weeks. It was always at around midnight till 2 a.m. I just put the ring on silent, but at times I saw the phone flash and answered angrily, telling whoever was calling to F off or asking what the F they wanted. But there was only the creepy breathing. I came back from a late night and checked to see if I had any missed calls, and there was none, so I took it as a good sign. But as I was just thinking that, the phone rang again. I let it ring, and after like 30 minutes it rang again, so I was so effing fed up. I called the police. I called at around 3:30 a.m. The cops showed up at around 4 a.m. In the meantime, I got 2 more calls, to which I answered with abstinence. The cop showed up at my house and takes my statement, but ultimately tells me there's nothing he can do, and just to look out and call back if anything looks suspicious. But he was going to do a few rounds around the block anyway. This took a while, and I wanted the phone to ring while the cop was there, but it didn't happen. The call stopped after the police visited, which made it more creepy for me because I felt whoever was calling got my address too. I never found out who was calling, and honestly, I hope I never have to meet the creepy a-hole. I worked at one of those 24/7 Walmart supercenters. I was right out of high school, 19F, and worked as a cashier for 2 terrible years where I was subjected to all kinds of abuse from customers and coworkers alike. I mean, I was screamed at, slammed into a register face first, groped, and even farted on once because this old lady was mad that oranges were priced each and not by the pound. Not kidding. However, the time that sticks out in my memory, in my head the most, is the time a customer tried to follow me home. I had just started my shift, and the second I got to the register, I had a line about 10 people long. For some reason, the Walmart I worked at never had enough registers open, so people were usually really mad and impatient. By the time they got to me, I got right to work, and kept a smile plastered on my face while making a minimal, mandatory small talk. How are you? Did you find everything? Most customers were polite, but not very interested in talking, so it's easy to fall into a bit of a cashier robot mode. I get to this guy who had only 2 items, yogurt and band-aids. I rang it all up in record time and neatly bagged it, but the customer doesn't seem to be paying any attention. He wouldn't look at me answer my greetings. His eyes just stared right down at the conveyor belt. Maybe he was a bit zoned out. The conveyor belt didn't look too dirty. I hadn't had the chance to wash it yet, because the second I walked over to the register, people lined up. Side note, always bag your products. Conveyor belts get real nasty. I tell the man his total, which was something like $436, and he starts fishing in his pocket for exact change without looking up. Inwardly, I groaned, but keep my customer service smile fixed into place while I waited. He is wearing one of those muddy brown denim jackets with lots of pockets. As he riffles through, I keep catching whiffs of stale BO and cigarettes. His hands were pretty dirty too, and all dried up from the cold weather. He dumps out an assortment of change on the counter, still not looking at me, and I begin to count it up. Everything is uncomfortably quiet. I can feel the eyes of every customer waiting in line boring into me, all except the guy who was digging in his pant pockets too. He was about 30 cents short. I let him know once he wasn't going to find any more coins. I was sure he wasn't going to find any more coins. It was then that he looks at me, making his scrunched up face, his eyes very dark brown, almost black, and they pierced right into me accusingly, as if he thought I was lying or something. While he was watching, I counted everything again. It's only 30 cents. You could give me your employee discount. No, that's against the rules, I answered apologetically. Went to put something back. I was about to get fired for giving somebody my discount, which was 10%, if you were wondering. If you're wondering. He wasn't the first person to ask for it, but some people pretending they were joking. He was not joking. No, I want them, he said, glaring at me. I began to wish he started staring at the conveyor belt again instead of at me. He was making me pretty uncomfortable. If I had 30 cents in my pocket, I would have paid it up myself. Just get this guy to leave. He reaches over and takes the bag, but I turn on the little bag carousel so that he can't. That was probably a stupid move on my part, but it wasn't like I could let him steal, right? If my my register was short 30 cents, my supervisors will be all over me. I know you get a discount, just plug it in. He completely blows up at this point, but I just shake my head and look at other customers, probably with a deer in headlights expression. People are watching, but no one does anything. This is just something that's inconveniently them. Even though I'm actually pretty scared, I'd already start flashing my register lights so that the CSM would come. But they were notorious for taking their sweet time. I'll get the CSM, so it may take a few minutes, I nervously offered. But the man just goes off and goes on about it, how it's not much and he needs it, with some explicit language thrown in, of course. He leaves before the supervisor comes, grabbing all of his change and shoving it into one pocket before storming off. I'm relieved that he's gone and continue working in uneasy silence. Everything seemed to go as normal after that. My shift ends at midnight. I managed to clock out on time for once. I didn't have a car, so I normally called my mom to pick me up, but she was out of town, and it was too late to call anyone else, so I decided to walk. Rather than waste my money on a cab. I lived about 20 minutes away. I felt pretty safe walking because you don't really tend to run into other pedestrians at that hour. After a few minutes of walking, I noticed a car driving really slowly behind me. The speed limit was 45 miles per hour. The car was probably going about 10 miles per hour. I got a bad gut feeling. I walked a little faster, trying to rationalize it. It could have been someone who wants to offer me a ride or get directions, but no. Whoever it was stayed behind me and didn't try to pull up next to me at all, even though they were going really slow. After about 5 minutes of this, the car finally turns into one of the neighborhoods. I was relieved, but it was short-lived. The driver parks his car and gets out of his car and begins jogging up to me. I realized immediately it was the yogurt Band-Aid guy. He's wearing the same exact muddy brown jacket and staring at me with those dark eyes. I turn around and start jogging down the sidewalk, which is still icy, and he just jogs right up next to me. I could actually hear the change jiggling in his pocket. He doesn't say anything at first, so I just try to run faster without slipping. Had this guy been sitting in the parking lot for hours waiting for me to get off work? Apparently so. I feel him staring at me and turn my head and turn my head to look at him while still running as fast as I can on ice. Inwardly, I think my lucky stars that were fresh gravel laid on, or I just probably could have slipped in classic horror movie cliche. What is the color of your underwear, he asks. That question horrifies and disgusts me. So my immediate reaction is, don't be a creep, and I punched him right in the face. It hurt my hand like a bitch, but he stops running for a second and bends forward but a bit, clutching his face. I swear I heard him say, okay, but I kept running, and I'm too scared to look back. I'm not sure if he kept following me after that, but I didn't run straight home because I was scared he might figure out where I live. When I did make it home, probably an hour later, I was on my landlady's apartment first. I went to my landlady's apartment first and told her what happened. I was really shaken up, and I told her that that if she sees a suspicious guy around the building, she should call the cops. My mom was out of town. I did still live with her at this time, and she didn't answer my calls, so I watched Disney movies until I was calm enough to go to sleep. The next day, I told my manager at work what happened, but they didn't care in hindsight. I probably should have called the police, but I was young, and I thought if it was necessary, management would have told me to do it. But don't know why I thought of considering that they had a way of really caring about their employees, and this sort of situation would have made them look good. This wasn't the only Walmart related incident where police should have been called but weren't. I felt pretty angry that they didn't take me seriously or care that I was scared. That the guy would show up again, but they told me no and made me go work at the registers. I quit shortly after. I never did see Yogurt Band-Aid guy again.